I'm Kash Nathan. I live in Waco, Texas right now, and I travel all around the United States and I'm a full-time evangelist. I came to God at the age of 25 in New Zealand. Grew up and lived my life in Malaysia, it's in Southeast Asia, and that's where I grew up. At the age of 25 that I had an experience with God in a house church, and it turned my life around and I never looked back after that. When I grew up in Malaysia, at about the age of 16, 17, group of us got together and we started fooling around, started smoking weed and skipped school and just small stuff that way. And I always had an ambition in me that I just didn't want to go around smoking weed and just wasting my life. I wanted to do something big. So it took me to a journey where through other acquaintances from Malaysia, we drew up to Thailand, which is a country that's connected to Malaysia. I met a gentleman there, a man there, and he, after some negotiation, he gave me a kilo of weed for free. And he said, go do whatever you want with it. So I took it back, crossed the border with it. I didn't have a passport, just walked the border, came across, and went back home with 1 kilo of weed and trying to figure out what to do, whether should I smoke it and give it away or we were young, and we just started to package it unprofessionally and just sell it for whatever amount. It was $5, $10, whatever we sold. And I think I made $1,000 out of that 1 kilo of weed. And light bulbs went off, and I said, well, we could do this. So I went back again with the $1,000, bought a kilo. This time I paid for it and came back, and we started a little small weed distribution network in school and outside in cinemas and skating rings and roller skate rings and stuff like that. And then another idea came. I met some foreigners, some people from Germany that knew how to make ecstasy. I had a German girlfriend then, age of 18, and she invited me to go to Germany. So I got my passport and went to Germany at 18 to learn how to make ecstasy, and came back with the knowledge to make a party drug, which was booming in Malaysia at that time, and it was a high market. And we sold ecstasy and made lots of money. Other friends of mine started introducing me to cocaine, and I was always wary about it because I felt very uncomfortable sniffing cocaine up my nostrils because it hurt, but it only hurt the first time. So we started to do cocaine, and we had suppliers and we started to sell them. And so from marijuana to ecstasy to cocaine, we started to build this network of people. And that's what I always wanted to do, was at that time, was not to be the guy on the street that sold $5 of weed or buying crack or whatever. I wanted to be the guy that got the source, the kingpin behind it. Had a big ambition. Through that journey of doing that, I met a lot of different people in that network. I met a group of Nigerians that settled in Malaysia. They were illegals, but they came through. There's one guy, I think his name was James, I can't remember. I mean, he was like 6'3", 6'4", whatever, tall guy. And I asked him, so what do you do for a living? And he says, I'm into plantations. I'm like, plantation? He had a field of growing weed. And another guy, Kelly, and he came to my club one day, and he came up to my table, and he put $1,000 US. We're in Malaysia, different currency, but he put $1,000 US rolled up on my table, and he said, go do whatever you want with it. I'm like, okay. So I took it, $1,000 US, it's in Malaysia, it's about 3,500 Malaysian dollars. So we didn't do a lot at that time. So we bought stuff, we partied, this was great. And then the guy comes back after a week or so, and he says, how did you like that $1,000? I said, what do you mean? I said, it's great, I've used it, And he said, it was all fake, it was counterfeit. I said, what? I said, yeah, it's all counterfeit. He asked me, did you get questioned and caught? I said, no. He says, that's how good we make it. And I said, I'm in. How can I get some more? So every $100 we paid $20, $25. And so we started to trade with counterfeit money. And we became close. They became friends and taught me how to make it. And I didn't really go into that. I just mainly wanted the money. but that was just the life that I came from. I remember when we had a lot of money. We were drunk and high all the time. We partied all the time. I remember a time that I went back to my parents' house and I was sleeping there. I was spending the night. And my sister, who I did not see for 10 years prior, because we went our two separate lives. And what I heard about her was she came to God and she became a Christian and so on and so. I didn't know what all that meant. I thought all Christians reported to the Pope. We grew up Hindu. We any understanding of Christianity at all. And she was at the house too. And she was a missionary to the Philippines, to the States, and she traveled all around, she and her husband. And so she was at home and she knocked on my door. I came home that morning, I think 4 or 5 in the morning. I was high as a kite. I had ecstasy in me, I had cocaine, I was drinking weed. I was blasting techno music in my room. It was blasting loud and I was high, buzzing. And about 8 o'clock in the morning, I heard this knock on the door and I opened, it was my sis. I said, hey, long time no see, da da da. And she said, can you take me to church? I'm like, I can't drive, I'm high. She said, please. And I said, okay, whatever. So I got in the car, I was playing Prodigy music and we were driving to the church. My sister didn't say a thing. I mean, I had horrible music playing and she didn't say a thing. She was sitting at the back. And we went to this church, which is like a shop lot. You had to go upstairs, kind of thing in Malaysia. So she went in, I said, I'm gonna wait in the car for you. I'm not, And so I went back, I went to sleep and she went up and she sent somebody down to get me, it was a little hassle. So finally I went up to the church. So when I walked in, I had a cigarette in my hand, I was blowing smoke. I walked in and, everybody looked and I threw the cigarette butt out. I went and sat at the back. And my sister was preaching and I didn't know what she preached. I didn't have an idea, but people were dancing and shouting and it was almost like a club. And I'm like, it's 10 in the morning and they're partying, And I'm like, what is this? Because in Hinduism, in Buddhism, everything's quiet. So, we left the church and we went down and we had some lunch and all that. And I end up, to answer your question there, I end up spending my entire time with the church folks. We had lunch. I went back to the pastor's house. He had 2 daughters and son, and he had a son and all that, and some visitors. My sister was there. They never asked me any questions, and everybody there knew who I was. I wasn't a nobody. People knew me. So people knew what I did, but they never asked me. They just treated me like a normal human being. They didn't want anything from me, and that was new. And it got me thinking, I said, I never met anybody so nice before, the group of people. So this is my turning point. It was close to midnight. I was at the house, we're about to leave, and the pastor's daughter was outside. And I was talking to her, and I asked her, I said, what are you gonna do when you graduate from school? And she said, I'm gonna be a missionary. I said, what is that? She said, I'm gonna travel around the world and tell people about God, about Jesus. I said, that's a job? And she says, yes. I said, huh. I said, you don't want to go to college and get a degree? So I didn't go to college to get a degree, you know what I'm saying? So I'm telling her, you don't want to go to college and get a degree? And she says, no. I said, well, you should do that. It'll be a backbone. That's what I said, the exact words I said, it will be your backbone. She said, Jesus, I don't know who Jesus is. She said, Jesus is my backbone. I'm like, what? And so I left thinking to myself, okay, who is this Jesus? And why people are so crazy over him? And why do they want to do all this stuff for him? And they say he's God. And so it just puzzled me. Now, I didn't change. I went back, I partied for a couple of more years. But that story never left me till today. Years from that, I still went on doing my thing. We became more notorious. We became a little bit more reckless. We were on the radar with the cops, other rival members, and so on. So, life was not as fun anymore. I had to close all the curtains all the time at home, and I started doing my own drugs even more. And my sister, who I took to church, and my brother, too, who was really with me also with all the things we were doing, he said, why don't I go to New Zealand? Because my sister and my brother-in-law started a foreign mission church in New Zealand. And why don't I go to New Zealand and just to chill out? I was already arrested a couple of times before that, and they didn't have a case, and I came out. So I said, sure. So I went to New Zealand, and I was 25 when I went. And they had this little house church. People will come to the house, and they will teach a Bible study, and they'll pray with them, and their lives would change. And I would always look. I was from a distance, like. And my brother-in-law said that, can I teach you a Bible study every morning? I said, sure. So I'll wake up, and he would share with me about Genesis, and so it all was so foreign to me. I'm like, I can't believe you guys believe this. Like, things start going, and what really caught me was the people, the visitors that would come to their house. They would pastor them, they would counsel with them, they would pray with them, and over time I saw their lives change, and it's almost like a miracle. It's like, how did their lives change? Now, I was a guy that when someone would bring a customer to me who's never drank alcohol before, I pride myself in the next 15 minutes, he's going to drink, or he's going to get his first snot, or I'm going to roll him a joint. I had a reputation that they would bring fresh out, no experience, nothing to me, and in 15 minutes, they'll be hooked. That was my reputation. I still think about it. It's still there in my mind, in my memory of all what I've done. But anyway, I saw these people change in New Zealand so much. I started doing the sound system for their church. They started to rent a place, and they had a sound system, so I started to do sound systems for them and all. And I started to get really interested. Let me think back this. My first prayer was in the morning, making coffee, looking out of the window and saying, "What's up, Jesus? How are you doing today?" That was my first prayer. And some people may not say that's a prayer, but it was my first prayer, my first acknowledgement. I wasn't a believer. I was just doing it because I thought everybody else was doing it. It seemed to work, like a formula. And then, because I was on a tourist visa, I was only going to be there for 6 months, and then I had to leave. And my 6 months were coming up, and I lost my passport. I couldn't find my passport. We panicked. We were like, okay, we got to find my passport, my visas, whatever, and all this kind of stuff. I went to the room, and I prayed this prayer, okay? It may sound simple to everybody, but I prayed. This is my first miracle prayer that I prayed. I went in my room, and I said, my mom says that you're Shiva, which is a Hindu god. And my sister said that you're Jesus. And if you are Jesus, I need you to talk to me. I need you to tell me. That was my first prayer. And I heard this voice, not an audible voice, but from inside, in my heart. I'm Jesus. And I ignored it. And then it came again. I'm Jesus. It got my attention. And when the third time I heard it, I started sweating. It was cold sweat because I felt like somebody was talking to me and nobody was in the room. And I believed. And so I jumped out of my bed and I opened the door and I saw my sister and I looked at her and I said, I believe. He's real. I said, I don't know what that means, but I believe. And that started the journey. When I started to believe, that whole incident in the door, and I started to have dreams. I had one dream that came back every single night. And this dream was, I'll be fast asleep, and this dream was a door. And you can see the light that borders the door. And I have this eerie feeling, like I knew the devil was in it. You know what I'm saying? This eerie feeling. And I'll always try to get to the door, but it became too scary for me. I'll wake up sweating. And it came every night. And I thought to myself, I said, devil, give me that dream again. And this time, I'm going to get to that door. I went to bed, slept, and the dream came back. And in that dream, I remembered what I said. I am going to get to that door. And I did. And I finally got to the door, and when I got a hold of that doorknob, something woke me up. Something jerked me up. It refused for me to open on the other side. It didn't want me to see what's on the other side. So I had dreams that way. When I started to believe more, I started to help my brother-in-law and my sister's church with the young people. They didn't have many young people. They had, people their age and older and so on. But I started to go out to the streets. And I got every prostitute, every gang member, everyone on the streets, Pacific Islanders, Kiwi, Maoris, all, and I brought them to church. I traded my car in and I bought a van. And I souped up that van with some sound system. I put in a sub, an amplifier and everything. And we were playing Storm from Kurt Franklin. And we were driving down the streets. And I was picking these young people up. And in 6 months, the entire church turned to a younger church than an older group. We went from 20 to 30 people to 140 in the first year. Young people. Everything I do right now is mainly from experience. And yes, I do. I got a degree and got certificates in ADHDs and CBTs and different things that I do right now to help, to have credentials. But really a lot of my teaching and coaching comes from experience. How I would coach someone that has gone through addiction and drugs and gangs and crimes just like myself, and to come out of that is I would empathize with them and would not judge them. I think I look at me, I trusted my brother-in-law and my sister, and because of that trust, I was able to hear and listen and obey. And you got to build that trust first. And sometimes you just got to start where they are. With the life that I've come from, there is more negativity than positivity. There's more pessimism than optimism. And it's hard. It's when you think about the failures, when you think about the people you've hurt, when you think about the families you've destroyed, the kids, when you start thinking about that, all of that, you can go through a spiral. You can go through this place. And I know it's all under the blood and so on, but it's still the reality of what you've done. My advice to anyone is never give up trying to be better. And if you can be better 5 minutes ago, if you can be better 1 day ago, and just be better, just never give up. Find a friend that is not with you just because of the partying or the drugs, all the fun times, but find a true friend that truly loves you, that truly cares for you. Find that one person, and that person will start helping you to get out of that life of sin. You can get me on social media. It's Kash Nathan with a K. I'm on TikTok, which is Coach Kash 77, and Instagram. I'm also on YouTube, so you can find me on social media.